In general terms, can you walk us through the exclusion, or do we dare?
Well, we could give it a shot. We could give it a shot.
We can give the highlight with
That would
many
be-
questions that can come subsequently, but the highlight I think is as appropriate.
Being that it's complex, why don't I start and then you pick up where
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, first of all, the most important part of the exclusion is geared towards allowing insurers to participate in the pools and not aggregate their exposures.
Exactly. That's precisely the whole concept of the nuclear exclusion.
Right.
Exactly.
So the first paragraph is nailing that. It's basically saying, hey, if you're insured under a pool policy, then we're not paying under the general liability policy. The second part is similar in that it addresses then, in the ISO version, it addresses the American system of if you have a financial protection requirement or a government indemnity, then again, if it's the indemnity, you're not going to use our insurance, you're going to use the indemnity first. And then if you have a financial protection requirement, then you should be using either the pool insurance in the first paragraph, or you've elected to self-insure, because they allow that as well. So, and if you've elected to do that, then you're not going to pay under our policy either. So those two first sections are really hitting the heart of the general liability exclusion, broad form. And Canada is similar in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's the NCLA now, not the Price-Anderson Act, but it's similar. The third part of the nuclear exclusion is the medical payments, which we already talked about, and that's excluded. And then we go to a section which is now specifically listing what is actually excluded.
Right.
And that is basically, if the incident is at a nuclear facility, as defined in the exclusion, we're not going to pay under the GL. You should basically have pool insurance or the other areas, indemnity or financial protection. Second, if it was in spent fuel or waste, if the nuclear material is contained in spent fuel or waste, then that is excluded, and they do that because spent fuel is so highly irradiated and dangerous that that's basically why the pools were formed, to take that exposure. And then again with waste, and then waste is an interesting one, because in the ISO version, the way they define waste, they allow and nuclear facility together, so these definitions have to be read together, but the way waste and nuclear facility are defined, commercial radioactive isotopes, which are a byproduct of radiated material, those are a GL exposure because they aren't considered waste. They're considered, they are produced as a waste, but not waste as defined, because they're going to go serve a useful purpose. So therefore, it's not waste. However, regular isotopes that are not used commercially, like say strontium-90 or whatever, fission fragments, those are considered waste, and therefore are excluded. And then I guess finally we talked about it already, where it will exclude anything outside Canada, any nuclear event or material issues outside of Canada or the United States, and also exclude property damage to the facility,
Facility
to
itself.
the nuclear
Yes.
facility itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then in America, it gives back product liability at a nuclear facility for suppliers furnishing services or products to a facility.
Right.
So in the States, you refer to them as nuclear facilities. In Canada, under our legislation, your nuclear facility is equal to our operator under the Nuclear Liability and Compensation Act. And because we have other facilities that would which would receive coverage under a tort regime, that the pools, the Canadian pool also has policy forms to provide that type of similar coverage, but under the tort regime. So we try to handle both sides of the equation, both the liability that's channeled to the operators and also the liability for which there is no channeling, so it falls under tort, et cetera.
Mhm.
So that's slightly different in the way we deal with it here in Canada.